Arifin Tasrif, Honorable the Chairman of Commissioner Board of the Indonesia Financial Services Authority, Mr. Wimbo Santoso, His Excellency, the Ambassador of Denmark to Indonesia, His Excellency, Ambassador Lars Bo Larsen, Honorable Secretary General of OECD, Mr. Matthias Cormann, and distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, let us pray to the God Almighty for His blessing, providing us health, so we are able to be present in today's event, offline and online. Both, I would like to send my gratitude for the presence and your participation in the launching of SEFI, Policy Review of Indonesia, Clean Energy Finance and Investment Policy Review of Indonesia, or SEFI, which is one of the results of cooperation between Indonesian government with OECD in the effort of Program Clean Energy Finance and Mobilization, or CEFIM. Honorable ladies and gentlemen, with your permission, allow me to read the agenda today, where there will be 5 big sessions. First, there will be a speech which will be led by Mr. Rodolfo Lacey from OECD. Second is the handover of the SEFI Policy Review of Indonesia from Danish Ambassador to Mr. Coordinating Minister of Economy. And before handing over of the book, we would like to kindly ask Mr. Ambassador to give a short speech prior to the handing over. And after that, we would like to ask Mr. Coordinating Minister, Mr. Minister of ESDM, and Mr. Ambassador to do the photo session before leaving the event. And the next session will be led by Ms. Cecilia Tam from OECD and will be attended by 4 speakers. Mr. Dadan Kustiana, Ibu Laksmi Dewanti, Mr. Rasmus Albigard Christensen, and Green Diplomacy and Climate Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Denmark, Mr. Rasmus Albigard Christensen. UK COP26 Regional Ambassador to Asia Pacific and South Asia, Mr. Ken O'Flaherty. And last session is the closing session. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the agenda of this event. And next, I would like to invite Mr. Rodolfo Lacey to guide the first session. Mr. Rodolfo Lacey, the platform is yours.
Thank you, Ang. Excellencies, Ministers, Secretary General, dear friends and colleagues, good afternoon and good morning to everyone. It is my honor to be here today to moderate the first session of our event on attractive private investment for Indonesia's green recovery, which marks the launch of our Clean Energy Finance and Investment Policy Review of Indonesia. This review, which identifies opportunities to mobilize finance and investment for renewable energy and energy efficiency, is particularly timely in the context of the current pandemic and can help support Indonesia's green recovery. Its analysis draws on expertise from all across the OECD and our sister organization, the International Energy Agency, as well as on our extensive work on green finance and investment. It also benefited from the knowledge and experiences of a range of key stakeholders which have taken part in our numerous dialogues and events organized throughout the review process. I'm talking about the Spanish government, OECD member and key partner country delegates and delegations, financial institutions, project developers, development partners. To overcome challenges, the review identifies a number of policy recommendations for Indonesia and development partners, which also follow up on recommendations from other OECD policy reviews, such as the Green Growth Policy Review, which I had a pleasure to launch in 2019 in Jakarta, as well as the recently released Investment Policy Review and the Economic Survey of Indonesia. This report is the fruit of our successful cooperation with the Indonesian government And I am very pleased really that Indonesia was actually the first country to undertake this first and its kind review and to participate in our new Clean Energy and Investment Mobilization CEFIM program. In this regards, I would like to thank the government of Indonesia for their collaboration and all their support throughout the review process. Special thanks also to the government of Denmark for their generous financial support to the program, without which the review would not have been possible. We are now, this is my honor to start our first session, where we will hear some opening remarks from our distinguished guests. First, Mr. Matthias Cormann, the new OECD Secretary General. Then Bapak Wimbo Santoso, Chairman of the OJK. Then Bapak Arifin Tasrif, Minister of Energy and Mineral Resources of Indonesia. And finally, Bapak Erlangga Hartarto, Coordinating Minister for Economic Affairs of Indonesia. First, finally, I think that it is very important for us to mention His Excellency Lars Bo Larsen, the Danish ambassador to Indonesia, will also make some opening remarks as part of the handover session of this report. Now, let me invite the Secretary General, Matthias Cormann, to take the floor and to open the session. Mr. Cormann, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Rodolfo. Ministers, ambassadors, colleagues, I'm pleased to be here with you to launch the OECD Clean Energy Finance and Investment Policy Review of Indonesia, and also to open this webinar on attracting private investment to Indonesia's green recovery. Let me begin by thanking Mr. Wimbo Santoso, the Chairman of the Financial Services Authority, Mr. Arifin Tasrif, the Minister of Energy and Mineral Resources, as well as Mr. Erlangga Hartarto, the Coordinating Minister for Economic Affairs of Indonesia, for joining us today. And to the government of Denmark for their financial support to our Clean Energy Finance and Investment Mobilization Program. Colleagues, this review, the first of this kind, comes at a particularly important and challenging time. As a result of the pandemic in Indonesia, like in other parts of the world, there's been a contraction in GDP. GDP in Indonesia fell by more than 2% last year, the worst recession since the Asian financial crisis in the 1990s. But the Indonesian economy is gradually recovering and is expected to grow by 4 to 5% over the 2021-22 period. The COVID-19 legacy has created new challenges. Vulnerable groups lost years of progress. Students did not attend school, and GDP remains below its potential. So clean energy investment can play a critical role in supporting Indonesia's recovery. If fully exploited, Indonesia's abundant renewable energy and energy efficiency potential could make it a leader in the clean energy market. Indonesia is already taking positive steps to make this happen. In sustainable finance, Indonesia has stressed the importance of filling the SDG financing gap and leveraging all available sources, including blended finance approaches, as well as utilizing triangular and south-south cooperation. Indonesia's global leadership in this field, also through the Trihita Karana roadmap, will help strengthen the G20 development agenda during Indonesia's upcoming G20 presidency in 2022. Indonesia has also made some tremendous improvements to the investment climate under its omnibus law. However, more can and must be done, and that's of course the subject of our discussion today. Unlocking the potential of the green recovery will require a transition away from fossil fuels. The energy sector is Indonesia's second largest source of greenhouse gas emissions. By embarking on a low carbon path, Indonesia can attract responsible foreign investment, create jobs, and address climate change. Creating a sound, transparent, and predictable regulatory environment in Indonesia is key to attracting the hundreds of billions of dollars of private investment to clean energy and supporting the country's green recovery more broadly. Aligning public investment and public procurement rules for Indonesia's energy sector to contribute to the path towards carbon neutrality can also help accelerate the shift towards renewable energy sources while preserving market competition. This clean finance and investment policy review supports Indonesia in this endeavor by providing a comprehensive overview of Indonesia's policies and highlighting the untapped opportunities for accelerating clean energy finance and investment. Let me highlight 3 proposed actions. First, we need to increase market competition and more stringent energy efficiency standards. Across the renewable energy sector, it is increasingly important, it's increasingly important in attracting foreign direct investment and to remain a competitive investment destination. Indonesia should accelerate developments in this area. Second, the government needs to continue supporting its clean energy transition. The recent commitment by PLN, the state-owned power utility, to achieve a net zero emission target by 2060 through the retirement of coal plants from 2025 onwards is a step in the right direction. Support will be vital in this transition, as nearly 60% of Indonesia's electricity supply comes from its 29 gigawatt coal-fired power plants. Indonesia has also made efforts to reduce fossil fuel subsidies and is preparing for a future carbon price through the pilot of its emissions trading scheme. Third, environmental, social, and governance considerations and financial innovation for low carbon opportunities need to be integrated into the broader financial sector. To this end, Indonesia's sustainable finance roadmap and its sustainable finance taxonomy, which the OECD is helping to develop, will advance these efforts. Looking ahead, the OECD stands ready to continue to support Indonesia, including as part of the 4th OECD Indonesia Joint Work Programme, expected to launch this year under the theme, Fostering a Resilient, Sustainable and Inclusive Recovery. This new joint work programme will exploit synergies with Indonesia's G20 presidency, including on sustainable finance, which the government identified as a priority under the finance track. The OECD has also launched a new international programme for action on climate to help OECD and G20 countries implement the goals of the Paris Agreement through a set of climate-related indicators, tailored recommendations and best practices. We would very much welcome Indonesia to join IPAC. Indonesia's investment in clean energy and its integration of ESG considerations also align with the Blue Dot Network's goals to accelerate quality infrastructure investment in the Asia Pacific. Finally, and in closing, the OECD can provide assistance to Indonesia with its digital transformation. Digital technologies have bolstered resilience during the pandemic, and they will be central to optimizing the strength and the quality of the post-COVID recovery. Minister Erlangga, friends, the work required to optimize the post-COVID-19 recovery has given us the opportunity to accelerate the transition to cleaner, greener growth. The OECD looks forward to deepening our engagement with Indonesia on environmental policy. We look forward to working with you as you progressively join our many declarations and conventions in this area and upgrading your policies and bringing them in line with international best practice. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Coleman. And now let me pass the floor to Bapak Wimbo Santoso, Chairman of the OJT. Mr. Wimbo, please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rodolfo Lacy. First of all, I would like to congratulate the Coordinating Minister of Economic Affairs, Mr. Erlangga Hartarto, and also Bapak Arifin Tasrif, Minister of Energy and Mineral Resources, and also Mr. Matthias Korman, Secretary General, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, and also Mr. Lars Bullerarsen, Danish Ambassador, and also representative of ministry and related institution, esteemed colleagues and ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, and also good morning to all of you who are in Paris. First of all, I would like to convey my sincere thanks to Bapak Erlangga Hartarto for hosting this meeting, and also great pleasure for me to deliver these remarks today. And also I would like to congratulate to OECD for finalizing the Clean Energy Finance and Investment, or CEFI, policy review for Indonesia. Yeah. As mentioned by Excellency Matthias Cormann, the Secretary General of OECD, that it is the first time of OECD writing this kind of reports, which hopefully could become a global reference for developing the clean energy finance and investment in the world. As we are aware that the current COVID-19 pandemic adversely affect so many aspects in our life, including economics, social, and also financial sectors. It has weakened the global economy, both in the real and financial sectors. Nevertheless, risk arising from the climate change is also highly prioritized and need to be mitigated by collaborative efforts and also synergy around the globe. I believe this is why all of us are present here today at this meeting. Indonesia Financial Service Authority, or we call it Oecd, appreciate the timely release of the CEFI policy review on Indonesia in the middle of our collective effort to achieve a sustainable economic recovery, including innovative ways to finance green energy projects. Distinguished ministers, ladies and gentlemen, Oecd, as the Financial Service Authority in Indonesia, is highly committed to support the adoption of sustainable finance program in Indonesia by issuing policies and regulation to enhance the achievement of the SDGs and climate change agendas. Oecd issued 2 regulations to support the implementation of the sustainable finance. First, Regulation number 51, released year 2017, regarding the implementation of sustainable finance for financial institutions in Indonesia, issuers in the capital market, and also public companies. And second, Regulation number 60, established year 2017 as well, regarding the issuance of green bonds. I believe many others of some guidelines that we have been released previously, including the policy incentive for electrical vehicle manufacturers in Indonesia. Distinguished ministers, ladies and gentlemen, I believe we still need to accelerate our action in achieving climate change agenda and SDGs by mainstreaming sustainable finance even further. 3 points as the main priorities in Indonesia to ensure effectiveness of implementation, the sustainable finance principle, as well as attainment of climate change agenda and SDGs in the near futures. First, establish green taxonomy guideline as a guidance to develop sustainable innovative products and services, including their disclosures. This agenda is considered as Financial Stability Board or FSB, as well as ASEAN Taxonomy Board's agendas with respect to disclosures and climate change risk assessment for financial institutions and also financial services. Second, develop innovative scheme of sustainable project financing or funding. And the third, increase awareness and capacity building for all stakeholders in Indonesia. To accelerate the implementation of those initiatives, Oecd prepares National Task Force on Sustainable Finance in collaboration with industry as a forum for discussion various issues related to the sustainable finance. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the Leaders Summit on Climate in April 2021 that was attended as well by President Joko Widodo also raised awareness to global players in financial sectors as the main focus of discussion. The discussion implicitly confirmed that net zero carbon economy could only be achieved if we could find innovative and affordable ways to finance green sources of energy. Commitment and global collaboration are the key success factors of climate change agenda. Financing a clean energy is not only a single country commitment, but also a global effort to achieve a better global environment. However, from the financial sector perspective, we learn that a clean energy is sometimes also exposed to high-risk business. A complete set of risk management of clean energy should be the priority for discussion to identify what risk is and how to mitigate the risk. Oecd pays strong attention to the clean energy sector by establishing a guideline for financial institutions to finance a clean energy project in 2015. I believe, if necessary, we still need to enhance a new guideline or to complete set additional guideline really to support the speed of the implementation of the agenda. As the follow-up of the guideline, Oecd require the financial institution to develop sustainable finance action plan for each institution in Indonesia. And we require them to report the progress to Oecd on yearly basis. This approach is to assess the action of the commitment of financial institutions to finance sustainable projects in Indonesia. I would like to share some statistical figures here. Currently, the outstanding green loan amount to 55.9 billion on Indonesian rupiah is 809.75 trillion. And blended finance portfolio amount to US dollar 2.46 billion, or in Indonesian rupiah is 35.6 trillion rupees. This progress shows the commitment of financial institutions and services to support the program in Indonesia. This blended finance project will roll out at the World Bank IMF annual meeting in Bali. It was 2018, consists of 33 projects under SDG Indonesian One program. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, for closing, thanks to OECD for kind support to Indonesia, as has been stipulated in a recent MOU between Oecd and OECD. And I'm confident that the implementation sustainable finance in Indonesia with full support by financial sectors. Let me close my remarks by wishing you all enjoy this fruitful discussion to embark on our journey to create better world for all of humanity and our future generation around the world. Thank you. Have a good discussion.
Thank you very much, Bapak Wimbo Santoso, for your comprehensive remarks. Now let me pass the floor to Bapak Arifin Tasrif, the Minister of Energy and Mineral Resources. The floor is yours.
Coordinating Minister of Economic Affairs, His Excellency Mr. Erlangga Hartarto, Secretary General of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, Excellency Matthias Cormann, Chairman of Financial Service Authority, or OJK, Mr. Wimbo Santoso, Danish Ambassador, His Excellency Lars Bo Larsen, distinguished speakers, participants, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon from Jakarta. My warmest congratulations to the OECD for finalizing the first clean energy finance and investment policy review of Indonesia, which hopefully can serve as a reference for others in developing clean energy finance and investment. Indonesia is committed to reduce around more than 300 up to 400 million tons of CO2 emission from our energy sector by 2030 in accordance with the Paris Agreement. By last year, Indonesia's energy sector has reduced more than 60 million tons of CO2 emission, mainly through the development of new and renewable energy, energy efficiency, and low carbon fuel utilizations. In order to achieve net zero emission in 2050, the Ministry of Energy Mineral Resources Office has been preparing energy transition roadmap to carbon neutral. Among others are: 1. Massive new and renewable development with additional capacity around 38 gigawatt by 2035, prioritizing on solar PV. Besides that, we will also continue to develop other new and renewable energy sources such as wind, biomass, geothermal, hydro, ocean, and also battery energy storage systems. Second, reduction of fossil energy resources utilization and clean technology implementation through no additional coal power plant unless it is already having power purchase agreement. Converting the use of diesel fuel into gas power plant with a total capacity of more than 2 gigawatt, then gradually transforming the renewable power plant afterwards. Phasing out of coal power plants and coal gas power plants and implementation of carbon capture storage or carbon capture utilization and storage for fossil fuel plants. The third, interconnections of transmission and smart grid electricity development. For the development of electricity infrastructure, our target is to interconnect electricity transmission in Sumatra, Java, Kalimantan, and Sulawesi by 2024, as well as several inter-island interconnection. In addition to that is installation of 7 smart grid projects that are planned in Java and Bali. We are also conducting study on electricity toll road for the national, or we call it Nusantara grid, which connects the electricity network between major islands as well as Papua, Maluku, and Nusa Tenggara, so that the electricity of renewable energy from great potential areas can be transmitted to broader areas with lack of resources but high electricity demand. And then last, to increase the use of electric vehicles. We have a target, millions of cars and motorcycles using electric energy in 2030. The CEFI Indonesia Policy Review was launched in just in time, as Indonesia is currently in the process of finalizing the 2021 and 2030 Electric Supply Business Plan, or we call it RUPTL, and related policies to encourage the acceleration of renewable energy development and implementation of energy efficiency. The RUPTL is designed to be a greener business plan by including more renewable projects. A huge amount of investment is required to meet our clean energy and emission reduction target in securing a smooth transition as well as making a conducive renewables investment climate, some challenges may arise. In this regard, the government is working hard to ensure a better, more reliable, and affordable access to green electricity. Support from all related parties is necessary in order to meet the growing demand while also maintaining sustainable environment. One of the notable challenges in renewable development is in improving transmission and distribution lines. In the future, Indonesia aims to improve the variable renewable energy penetration into the grid. Support from the OECD and other partners on best and clean technology utilization, fair, transparent procurement process, as well as related costs and electricity tariff will be greatly helpful for us to reach such a target. Finally, one of the key success to carry out the energy transformation is by advancing human resources. As we work hard to make a better future for the next generation, we need to make sure that our successors inherit and advance the skill needed to continue this transition process. In this regard, we need to work together with the OECD and other development partners to empower the young generation and prepare them with the right tools to ensure a better world for all of us. To conclude, once again, my highest appreciation to the OECD initiative to conduct Clean Energy Finance and Investment Policy Review of Indonesia. I do sincerely hope that this policy review will provide significant insight on developing an innovative and flexible financial instrument to support our program in developing energy transition project. Thank you, wish you healthy, and looking forward to cooperate with you.
Thank you very much, Bapak Arifin Tasrif, for your strong commitment in the net zero and sustainable future of Indonesia. Now, let me invite Bapak Langga Ardato, Coordinating Minister for Economic Affairs, to give us his remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Rudolfo, for the invitation. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning. His Excellency OECD Secretary General, Mr. Matthias Komen, His Excellency Danish Ambassador for Indonesia, Mr. Lars Bo Larsen, His Excellency Oecd Chairman, Pak Wimbo Santoso, His Excellency Minister of Energy and Mineral Resources, Pak Arifin Tasrif, respectful participants, ladies and gentlemen. OECD and Indonesia have already long cooperation to improve good governance practices and exchange knowledge in many sectors. In the early 2019, the government of Indonesian delegation was invited to the OECD headquarters to share an interest in developing the clean energy sector in emerging economies. Later in 2019, OECD and Indonesia officially launched the Clean Energy Finance and Investment Mobilization Program. And today I'm glad that one of the main activities under the program of Clean Energy Finance and Investment Review of Indonesia is ready to be launched. Therefore, I convey my appreciation to the OECD, who has conducted this review that comprehensively covers the challenges and opportunities to improve the clean energy finance and investment in Indonesia. This report also contains tailored and practical recommendations that would support the effort to reduce greenhouse gas emission and accelerate the clean and sustainable energy transition. The finalization of the report could not happen without the contribution of my colleague from related ministry, and also agencies. So the Clean Energy Association, as well as financial institution and other stakeholders. So I thank you for all of your hard work and support. Ladies and gentlemen, recently the government stipulated the jobs creation law, which has designed to allow more investment, as well as the establishment of sovereign wealth fund to support the investment strategic infrastructures including the clean energy investment. We will also launch the new online single submission to improve the ease of doing business that will boost the investment in Indonesia. Nevertheless, the COVID-19 global pandemic has brought the consequences, including deflated our economic growth that impacted the people's life in the country. To address those challenges, the government implement continuous and comprehensive program to assist people to recover better by providing social security program, included the incentive for business activities, SMEs, dan corporation, as well as capacity building for the workforces. And the last but not least, in providing the COVID-19 vaccination for the population that we hope will become the game changer to beat the coronavirus. At the moment, we can vaccinate 1.3 million in a day. So we will increase the capacity of vaccination. Ladies and gentlemen, aligned with the concept of recovery and build back better, Indonesia commitment to reduce GHG emission by 29% in 2030 find its momentum since it's good opportunity to collaborate with global community to tackle the impact of climate change in Indonesia. Having said that, putting the commitment into action requires high financial support that our state budget alone cannot meet the needs. So the finalization of the report is really on the timely. Yet Indonesia has to focus on strategy, not only can reduce the emission, but at the same time, it also have abundant resources and would attract interest from the investor. And this is a clean energy. However, some challenges remain to untap and optimize the potential. And we agree that we need to establish a synergy from all the stakeholders to overcome the challenge, to accelerate more finance and investment in the clean energy. As my colleague has been said earlier, that in the energy sector, we concentrate on the renewables such as geothermal, hydro, solar, wind, as well as we build the EV car ecosystem from the mining of nickel to the fuel cell to the battery, as well as to accelerate the manufacturing of EV cars. We expect that 20% of EV cars can be produced by the year of 2025. So I think we will also do many incentive for this renewable energy, including introductions of the solar panel in the rooftop of the factories. Again, OECD comes timely on this matter, and I hope that OECD will not stop only by giving us the recommendation, but I seek further OECD support to sharing the best practice and facilitating the capacity building program. And most importantly, I encourage OECD countries to confidently financing and investing in the clean energy project in Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, I hope that this event today, all of the stakeholders will participate actively to accelerate the low carbon development in Indonesia. Once again, I thank you for your support and attendance. Stay safe and stay healthy. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bapak Airlangga Hartarto. Your ministry has always been highly supportive in the relationship of Indonesia and the OECD. Let me thank you again, Ministers and Secretary General, for your interesting remarks. I return the floor to Angga Darmawan, who will moderate the handover of the report between the Danish Ambassador Lars Bo Larsen and Minister Airlangga Hartarto. Please, Anne, the floor is yours.
Ya, thank you, Rodolfo. Bapak Menko, Bapak Menteri SDM, Bapak Dubes, terima kasih atas sambutannya. Dan sekarang kita
Mr. Ambassador, Minister, thank you for the remarks. Now we move to the handover of the safety review from the Danish Ambassador to the Coordinating Minister of Economic Affairs. So, but first, I would like to invite Mr. Ambassador to deliver the short remarks before handing over the report to the Coordinating Minister. Your Excellency, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon and good morning to all Excellencies, Ministers, Elango, Atazo, Minister Tassos Arifin. Very good to see you here today. Secretary General and all colleagues joining online, friends from around the world. Yeah. It's a big honor for me to be here today, to be able to hand over this report. A lot has been said already, maybe everything has been said, but let me add two things. One is, I think the timing of today's event is very good. We appreciate very much the leadership that we see from Indonesia when it comes to the green transition. And we know that you're working very hard, Minister, in your ministry in finding the right way forward to achieve the goals that you just mentioned. And also we appreciate very much the partnership that we have, also in different formats. And let me give a special thanks here also to Pakdaran, also joining here online for all the hard work that you're giving into this. So I think timing could not be better. Secondly, let me say, I think this report gives a lot of very tangible, practical advice of how to achieve the combination of not only going for a green transition, which will be coming, but how to combine that with attracting investments and creating jobs. And I think this triangle of investments and jobs, together with the green transition, is the possibility that we have in front of us. Let me also really appreciate what you said, Minister Alanga, when it comes to the job creation law. I think that is an immense positive step forward. And I also agree with you of the potential of the Indonesia Investment Authority. And we already enjoy very good cooperation with the INA on also these issues. So I think a lot of good things are to be said about this. Most have been said. So let me stop here. And it's a big honor for me to be able to hand over this report. And I wish you all the best of success in taking this forward.
Mohon Bapak Menko dapat berdiri didampingi oleh Bapak Menteri SDM untuk
We
menyerah.
invite the Coordinating Minister to stand up and accompanied by the Minister of Energy and Mineral Resources to receive the report.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, now we conclude to our the end of our opening session. So before Pak Menko, Pak Menteri SDM dan Bapak Duta Besar meninggalkan ruangan.
And before the ambassador and all ministers leave the venue, we invite you to stand up again. So we have a group photo. And other senior officer, we invite to come to the stage to have a group photo as well.
Ya. Silakan para fotografer.
Okay, to all photographer, we invite you to take the photos.
Terima kasih, Bapak Menko, Bapak
Thank you
Dubes.
so much, Mr. Ambassador, Coordinating Minister and Minister. Thank you so much for your participation. And that concludes the opening and the handover of the Clean Energy Finance and Investment Policy Review of Indonesia report. And next, we invite you to take the panel discussion that will be moderated by Ms. Cecilia. Ms. Cecilia, the time is yours.
Thank you, ministers and Ambassador Larson, for our first session, and thank you, Secretary General and Rodolfo. Now I'd like to invite our distinguished panelists to turn on their videos and join us for our panel discussion today. This session will highlight recent and upcoming policy reforms that will help Indonesia accelerate its clean energy transition. This transition should focus on deploying Indonesia's abundant energy efficiency and renewable energy potential. Achieving this potential will require a major scale up in finance and investment in clean energy. And this panel will also discuss how international collaboration can help Indonesia to green its economic recovery. On our panel today, we will have Bapak Dadan Kustiana, Director General, New Renewable Energy and Energy Conservation of the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, Ibu Laxmi Dewanti, Director General, Climate Change Control from the Ministry of Environment and Forestry, Rasmus Abigard, Christensen, Head of Green Diplomacy and Climate, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Denmark, and finally, Ken O'Flaherty, UK COP26 Regional Ambassador to the Asia, Pacific, and South Asia. Each panelist will provide some opening remarks, and after we've heard from all our four speakers, we will open up the floor for questions. Participants are invited to pose their questions through the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen. And now I'd like to invite our first panelist to provide an update on recent upcoming policy reforms that have been implemented to support renewables and energy efficiency development. Bapak Dana, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ibu Cecilia. Good morning, my colleagues, Ibu Laksmi, and also Pak Ken and others. Thank you for the opportunity. I would like to share some slides. Is it okay, Mbak Cecilia?
Yes, please go ahead. You should have a co-host status, so you can share your screen.
Okay. Thank you. So as mentioned by the ministers earlier, that government of Indonesia has targeted the renewable energy to contribute 23% in 2025. This target will also support the commitment of the Indonesia to reduce the greenhouse gas emission by 29% in 2030. So the energy sector is expected to contribute 38% of our NDC target in 2030, which is half of them will be from renewable energy. So from time to time, we have monitored together with Ibu Laksmi office that the target is still on the track, but we need more acceleration to reach the target of 29% in 2030. So I think I will read over the report. I have scanned already the report that has been launched today, and I'm very happy also later on to do the discussion and to follow up all the findings and also suggestions. So energy transition has to be prepared and also to be implemented in a way that we have to make sure that all people has the access to affordable energy, to guarantee the jobs, and also to provide more clean energy in the market. So what we do in Indonesia together here, in particular for the energy sectors. So in the beginning, we are combining all efforts. So we are still using fossil fuel, and we do development how to do the carbon capture on this. So we are open for the collaboration. We have very good discussion also with other countries, support, and how to develop the CCUS in the country. And the priority is to develop, of course, the green energy, new and renewable energy acceleration. We do in some strategies. The first is to substitute the primary energy. So we put biofuel into the tank. We do co-firing, putting more renewable energy blended with coal. And we are also converting all the municipal city waste and being blended into the coal power fire plant. We are trying to have the conversion of fossil energy. For example, we start already the conversion of the diesel fuel to renewable energy for electricity. We have currently around 5,000 of the diesel generator actually spread out of the country. And these all are using the diesel. And we have put a target within 2 or 3 years to convert around 300 megawatts from diesel into the renewable energy. We are also developing the non-electricity and non-biofuel use to substitute the fossil fuel. For example, the introduction of biogas, the introduction of CBG, and the use of direct heat, for example, for geothermal, for the use in the drying in the process of agriculture. In addition to, we will add more renewable energy into the grid, starting from solar energy. We are the country with high potency in hydro, We have quite a lot of potential in wind, of course, onshore and some is offshore. We are the tropical countries, and with the background of agriculture economy, so we are more in terms of potential of biomass and waste. That's why we are not superior in putting more biofuel as the blended with the diesel fuel. We are the second largest country in terms of potential of geothermal, so government put more effort to have this implementation in accelerating way. But those are not enough. So the energy transition will then combine with the other development. We need to develop our infrastructure, smart energy, the smart grid, and of course we have to do also the energy efficiency. We invite investment also to develop the grid for all of the islands, as been mentioned also earlier by the Minister of Energy, and of course the electric vehicle, battery, and the discussion to have nuclear energy for the baseload of the clean energy, and also developing the hydrogen. By those, then I think the target, the objective, the outcome of net zero emission, to have energy independency, to ensure the energy security, and also the low carbon and climate resilience will be achieved somewhere in 2060. So next. So this is the update of the regulatory framework as being asked by the organizers, that we have already 3 laws in relation with renewable energy. We have law on energy, we have law on geothermal, and also the new one in job creation. And we have other following regulation in terms of government regulation, in terms of presidential regulation, and also in terms of the ministerial regulation. So, and now we are doing the transformation. We will have a law on a very specific issue on renewable energy. This is initiative from the parliament, and the government now includes preparation. When the law is being submitted to the government, then we are ready to discuss, and we like to have this law also in place very soon. There are some regulations now already in the final stage for preparation. I believe that you will ask me also, we mentioned the carbon pricing or trading, that this is in the final stage for the signing by the president. We are also in the last step for the preparation of the personal regulation on renewable energy tariff, and also the other regulation in terms of the conversion of the hybrid diesel power plant into renewables, the regulation on solar rooftop, and also the government regulation on energy efficiency. So all this together are intended to accelerate the implementation of the clean energy towards the net zero emissions. My last slide is the funding and incentives. This is always something that dynamic and interesting and important for us. We have some regulation, but then if we don't have a good financing scheme on this, that will be also hamper the target. We are open for any mechanism for the funding schemes. Of course, we are inviting investors, and we have also the mechanism on KPBU, public-private partnership, and also the joint venture, and of course the support from the state and regional budget. In particular, for example, for the geothermal, there are some initiatives and support in terms of financing. We have PIS, geothermal sector infrastructure financing. We have geothermal exploration upstream development project. We have also geothermal resource risk mitigation. All together are intended to reduce the risk during the exploration. There are some applicable incentive, available incentive already, tax holiday, import duty facilitations, and others that are available for the investment on renewable energy. So in closing, Ibu Cecilia and others, so Indonesia is open to any feedback that further improve our investment climate and boost sustainable development, particularly in new and renewable energy projects. We really appreciate OECD initiative to develop a clean energy finance and investment policy review of Indonesia. And thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Bapak Danan, for highlighting the recent and the upcoming policy changes that are coming forth. Now, I would like to invite Ibu Laxmi Dewanti to discuss Indonesia's efforts and support needed to achieve its NDC. Ibu Laxmi, please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Cecilia. Thank you, colleagues from OECD. Long time not see you all, Mr. Lassi. And thank you for this opportunity. Let me share some insights from the Indonesian government with regard on resource mobilizations to achieve the NDC target. So allow me to share my screen. I shall be brief because I noticed that I only have, say, 7 minutes for my presentations. Can you see my slides, Cecile?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay. Yes. Yes. My name is Laxmi Dewanti. I'm now serving as the DG for climate change. I'm happy to be here because I know how this project was born back in Paris a few years ago, and I'm happy to see that the documents and the report has been launched. And congratulations for OECD team as well as the colleagues from the coordinating ministries of economic and mineral resources and energy. So as already mentioned by several speakers previously, that the Indonesian NDC has set quite targets. 29%, it's an unconditional targets by 2030, and 41% with international support. In the context of updated NDC, because we are updating our NDC, Indonesia, it's no focus on what you call it. We're trying to get more optimistic opportunity in getting support, so then we can achieve the 41% by 2030. Yeah, there's a lot of commitments in our NDC. In our NDC, unlike other country, Indonesia put adaptation and mitigations action as equal important. And there's a policy message within our NDC. We need to integrate both the adaptation and climate and mitigations climate actions as an integrated part of the development strategy. We need to speed up all the collective and national effort toward the full implementations of the Paris Agreement in Indonesia. And we realize that the greenhouse gas emission mitigation is a potential across the economy. So it's time to mobilize the resources. So there is no space, there is no time to any further delay in mobilizing the resources. So this is the detail of the Indonesia NDC's targets. So we are focusing in 5 major sectors, the dominant sectors, the AFOLO, the forest and land use, energy, waste, agriculture, and the industrial processing and production use. As you can see from this slide, the forest sector and the energy constitute the biggest contribution of the NDC's target. So today we are talking about the energy. So I mean, my colleagues DG Dadan has explained briefly on how energy will achieve the target of the NDC. And previously in the opening session, in the launching sessions, the minister himself also mentioned about how energy would like to achieve quite a target, not only for 2030, but also for the long-term strategy context. So this is the elaborations. After having the NDC, Indonesia has developed and launched the so-called NDC strategy. So we already have the strategy and roadmap. both for the mitigations and adaptations. This is part of the roadmap of the energy targets. I believe my colleagues, DG Dadan, has explained well on how to achieve these targets. As I mentioned, adaptation is equally important than mitigations in the context of Indonesian NDC. So we have a quite also ambitious target for the adaptations. Yeah, of course, today we are talking about the energy and mostly on the mitigations actions. But how I address this slide, because in the context of resource mobilizations, we need to put both adaptation and mitigations actions need. Then to design and to strategize our effort and our roadmap in mobilizing resources. Because for a country like Indonesia, that's very vulnerable with the negative impact of the climate change, the adaptations will also contribute the successful of the mitigation action. So we would like to have the both joint benefit between adaptation and climate and mitigation action for most of the action, climate change action in Indonesia. So how we strategize, how we mobilize our resources. Back in 2017, the government of Indonesia has launched the government regulations on economic instrument. So basically, the economic instrument is to support all the effort in regard with the protections and management of the natural resources and environment, including the climate change actions. So if we put the NDC implementation strategy or the roadmap, so we elaborate and we acknowledge that there are quite significant financial resources and other resources needed as the prerequisite for Indonesia to achieve the NDC. So in this slide, I just would like to show you that how important Indonesia and I believe other countries to develop the ecosystem of the or the framework on how to utilize and how to mobilize the resources. Of course, part of our strategy and policy, we would like to create all the component of the ecosystems. So among others is incentives set by the state. We would like to have the state to be able to give incentive for the positive mitigation and adaptation actions. In the same time, we also would like to create the market, as has been mentioned as well by my colleagues, DG Dadan, that part of the market creation, we are now finalizing the government, the presidential regulations on carbon pricing, and the according to draft or based on the draft of these regulations, Indonesia would like to promote at least 4 mechanisms of carbon pricing, including the carbon trade, the result-based payment, the carbon taxations, and the combinations mechanism among the three. And then we also would like to enhance our governance by setting the mechanism for administrating funds. So again, back 2019, Indonesia has launched so-called Indonesian Environmental Fund to better manage our fund, to better manage our support, financial support from various resources, to be able to be utilized and to be benefited by various stakeholders for various adaptation and mitigation action. This is my last slide. So yeah, of course, resource is always a limit. So we need to scaling up financial resources and other resources. So we are basically have 4 strategies. The first strategy is to greening our fiscal policy. Second strategy is to develop various innovative financing instruments, as already mentioned by the head of the Indonesian Financial Services Authority, that we are moving towards sustainable financing era. We already have the green sukuk, the green bond, and other innovative financing instruments. We also would like to make our mitigations and adaptation action to be more attractive to the private sector investment. And the last strategy is to improve access to the various global finance. So Cecile and colleagues, I think that's all that I would like to share, and looking forward to have a very fruitful discussion. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Ibu Laxmi, for taking us through your the country's strategies and goals for mobilizing finance for adaptation and mitigation. Now, the OECD's Clean Energy Finance and Investment Policy Review also highlights a number of opportunities to enhance development assistance that can help mobilize more private capital for clean energy investments. I'm very pleased now to invite our next panelist to outline some of his country's efforts in supporting Indonesia's clean energy development. Rasmus Abegard Christensen, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Cecilia, and thanks also to Pak Dadan and Ibu Laxmi for their presentations. Indonesia and other emerging economies, of course, have a key role to play in the energy transition. I think if you look at the IEA's recent special report on financing the clean energy transition, the annual capital spending on clean energy in these economies need to expand by more than 7 times, and that, of course, also includes Indonesia. But as we all know, it's a challenge to mobilize sufficient investment and finance, and especially from the private investors. Today, we have a strong reliance on public sources. The private actors tend to conclude that investments in emerging economies are too complex and risky, and therefore capital is significantly more expensive than in advanced economies. And that is despite the fact that the cost of renewables have fallen rapidly, including solar and wind in many countries, including Denmark. So I think it's important that we combine forces to find the best way forward to accelerate these investments. And hopefully, in the case of Indonesia, the CIFI policy report will contribute to a clearer vision of which actions are in fact needed in the years to come. Denmark is happy to support this paper and this policy work. I was fortunate that I could participate myself in the launch. I think almost 2 years ago. At that time, I was posted in Indonesia. Now I'm back in another function, but very happy to see that there is a strong and final result coming out, and also very happy, of course, that it was possible to do despite the difficult circumstances due to COVID. If you look at the report itself, I think maybe just highlight 1 or 2 recommendations that I find particularly interesting or useful. The first being the recommendation of transparent public competitive tenders to procure renewables. I think if you look at the case of Denmark, public tenders have been a clear game changer when it comes to reducing cost and attracting investors for large-scale offshore wind projects. And it's important to stress that what really contributes to driving down cost and attracting private developers and investors is a development of a pipeline of bankable projects. And I know that both the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources and others in Indonesia are working on just that. And I think that's absolutely crucial. Of course, all the building blocks are essential too, including an ambitious climate and renewable energy targets, and Indonesia have that, long-term energy planning, streamlining on PPAs, and the creation of tender systems. And with those building blocks, and hopefully in combination with, and that's another recommendation of the report, the need for innovative de-risking instruments, including guarantees and blended finance mechanisms, I think there's a good opportunity to unlock a lot of renewable and clean energy investment in Indonesia. Denmark is certainly happy that we already have a strong collaboration with the Indonesian government through our bilateral energy partnership to support Indonesian efforts to accelerate the clean energy transition. exactly using this Danish experience of how to de-risk through the creation of an enabling environment and sort of developing or promoting these essential building blocks that I mentioned before that creates a low-cost development of renewable energy. To be very specific, in the case of Indonesia, Denmark has provided support in 3 major areas. The first being energy planning and modeling, collaboration with both national and regional authorities on the development of energy modeling and scenarios. This includes contribution to the elaboration of the Indonesia Energy Outlook, an outlook that sort of visualizes different pathways and changes of the Indonesian energy system. And I think a strong sort of foundation for some of the work that both Danan and Ibu Lakshmi mentioned. Second, and more concretely on renewables, we participate actively in various concrete projects, especially on renewable integration. At Lombok, for example, the integration of renewable energy has been improved with data from a forecast system. Again, a technical thing, but nonetheless makes it easier to integrate renewables and again help bring down cost. And Denmark has also shared our experience on the design of support mechanisms for renewable energy. And then finally, we've been doing a lot of work on energy efficiency in buildings, industry, and power plants to ensure that the green transition is not just easy, but also cost effective. So just to conclude, I think Indonesia, as several speakers have highlighted, is indeed blessed by nature with a very strong potential for renewable energy. And of course, we are happy to do our bit to support and maybe have a small contribution to unlock that potential. It's certainly there, and we see a lot of promise, and hopefully the OECD report can also be helpful in that regard. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rasmus. Now, mobilizing finance is one of the key goals of the UK's COP26 presidency, and I'm pleased to invite our last speaker for the session, Ken O'Flaherty, to tell us more about UK's activities in supporting developing countries mobilize finance in the run-up to COP26. Ken, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Cecilia, and good morning and good afternoon to all our participants. As you've heard, I'm Ken O'Flaherty, the UK government's COP26 regional ambassador for the Asia Pacific and South Asia region, and I'm really pleased to be here today to share about the UK's COP26 priorities and how achieving these can support countries like Indonesia to deliver their energy transition objectives. It's a particular pleasure to be on this panel and to see Pak Dadan and Ibu Lakshmi here today, whom I was delighted to meet just a few weeks ago when I travelled to Jakarta with our COP President Designate, Alok Sharma, for a series of really productive conversations with their ministries and with other colleagues from across the Indonesian government. So finance is fundamental to enabling and to accelerating climate action. As the world comes together in Glasgow later this year to raise ambition towards keeping the Paris Agreement target of 1.5 degrees alive and meeting adaptation needs, we have to ensure this is backed up by similar ambition on finance. An ambitious outcome on finance means encouraging and supporting countries to take climate action. We have to support emerging economies like Indonesia to mobilize the finance necessary to enable the low carbon transition and curb rapidly rising emissions, while at the same time supporting the poorest and the most vulnerable as they adapt to the climate crisis. We know that international support is absolutely crucial to this, and so realizing increased international climate finance is a top priority for our COP26 and our G7 presidencies. We are actively pushing developed countries to come forward with increased multi-year climate finance commitments, and it's essential that developed countries show collectively how they will meet and surpass the joint commitment to mobilize $100 billion of climate finance every year. For our part, we are trying to lead by example. The UK is doubling our international climate finance spend to at least £11.6 billion between 2021 and 2025, and we're asking other donor countries to match the scale of our ambition. Earlier this year, we also published the Priorities for Public Finance report, which highlighted the challenges we collectively face, but also the initial steps that the international community can take to address them. It set out, are 11 priorities for public finance that address common challenges, which include access to finance, mobilizing private sector finance, wider fiscal challenges, the allocation of finance, in particular grants to the poorest and the most vulnerable, and of course, finance for adaptation and resilience, as we've heard earlier. In Indonesia, the UK is supporting these efforts. Our embassy in Jakarta, together with the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, are co-chairing the new Friends of Indonesia Renewable Energy, or FIRE, dialogues. The FIRE dialogues aim to coordinate and deliver enhanced international support for Indonesia's energy transition. The first FIRE dialogue was held on the 8th of April this year, with participation from several Indonesian government stakeholders, from academia, civil society, partner governments, and international organizations. And we are now convening working groups to formalize offers of support on retiring old fossil fuel assets and on developing new, low-carbon focused long-term energy plans. FIRE is also planning future dialogues on regulating for investment, where key reforms to help deliver and finance energy transition and net zero commitments will be discussed. The government of Indonesia's own Low Carbon Development Initiative report concludes that a low carbon growth pathway will deliver an average of 6% GDP growth, higher than the business as usual sector scenario. Retiring old fossil assets is necessary to create room for large-scale renewables. While it's a complex issue, if we plan it in the right way, Indonesia will reap the benefits and avoid more tricky issues in the future. And governments have to lead this initiative, but the private sector can also play an important role in early retirement and driving transition by creating and improving the availability and access to green finance. Encouragingly, finance for low carbon development is increasingly available at large scale. So for countries like Indonesia, it's accessing that finance that's key. Greater flows of private finance must be catalyzed to support the transition to a low carbon, climate resilient development pathway. International support will be important for helping to enable this. Targeted support from governments, from development banks and international institutions, combined with improvements in policy and regulatory frameworks to facilitate private finance, will mobilize the trillions of dollars of investment which are needed globally to achieve the goals of the Paris Agreement. Emerging economies like Indonesia, a G20 member and on trajectory to be a top 10 economy within the next 10 years, should not see international support for the low carbon transition as aid. Instead, it's an enabler to help kickstart their own transition efforts, which they can drive and which they can own. And that includes putting in place the policy and regulatory landscape that will unlock the massive private sector investment which is necessary to deliver the transition to net zero, creating new markets, helping grow the economy faster, as well, of course, as tackling climate change and improving the health of people and the environment. That will help us to create a sufficient pipeline of viable investments. As part of our COP26 finance goal, we want to support the development of pipelines of investment-grade projects and help these to access suitable finance. That's an important feature of our Mentari low-carbon energy partnership with Indonesia, where we work closely with colleagues at the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources. Mentari is directly supporting project developers and investors to develop and finance renewable energy projects. And just last week, Mentari delivered 2 days of training and clinics on green finance, attended by a wide range of attendees from regional governments across Indonesia. We very much hope that by COP26 we will see more ambition on finance, together with progress towards putting in place the plans, policies, regulations, and projects to accelerate an inclusive low-carbon transition, increasing coordination and understanding of the issues and solutions at hand. Discussions like this webinar today and the paper from the OECD are really helpful in that regard. We look forward to working further with my fellow panel members and participants today to ensure that finance helps to deliver climate action up to COP26 and beyond. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ken, for your remarks. Now we're going to, we have a few minutes left to take some of the questions from the floor. I'd like to thank those participants who have already submitted their questions and encourage others to do so. I'm going to combine one of the questions. It's around the power purchase agreement conditions. We have two different participants who would like to ask the panel members about how the government can really improve the PPA conditions to really unlock finance and investment. Both a project developer and a former investment bank, a development banker, has mentioned that there is a lot of projects that are underway, but that the current PPA conditions make it quite difficult to access finance. So I'd like to perhaps first ask Pak Dandan if you would like to respond to the questions from the floor on perhaps any changes that will be taking place with the PPA conditions to make it easier for developers and investors to support renewable project development.
Thank you, Cecile. Is it the question from the anonymous attendee?
Yes, but also from Oli Noronjono. He also has a very similar question around difficulties that are posed by the lack of transparency in the PPA negotiations and the PPA terms.
Well, thank you. But I don't want to answer the question from the body that, I mean, without the name, yeah. But I would like to touch into the issue of the PPA. Yeah, I think as I mentioned that we are preparing the presidential regulation on a tariff. So in that regulation that we put also that anything about contract PPA has to be prepared in the most transparent, and we are going also to have something like a standardized PPA. So this is the one that our strategy to deal with the very long discussion in terms of the PPA process. Yeah, we do understand. I mean, that situation is happened for some time, and for some projects, we have, for example, a very long discussion in the geothermal, because geothermal is not really in tariff, but this is in terms of the cost. So I think basically for the basic issue that we will have the standardized of the PPA, and then from time to time in terms of the negotiation, the government will take more active contribution, yeah, as a facilitator for that kind of the process.
Thank you very much. And this has really come out also in our discussions for the review, that there is a need and opportunity to increase the standardization of contracts and projects that would really allow the financial sector to become more ambitious and facilitate their support for projects. I'd also like to pose a question to all panelists. One of the early questions we received during the discussion session was whether panelists felt that the COVID-19 pandemic and efforts to restart the global economy will delay or actually accelerate the green transition in Indonesia. This is a question for any of our panelists. Does anyone want to jump in there with a response?
Let me try to respond it, Cecile.
Please.
Yeah. Well, I believe that in every single challenging situations like the COVID-19 pandemic, there's always an opportunity behind it. So, and in fact, from the environment and forestry point of view, we regard this situation as a challenge to keep moving toward the green options and to have more integrated interventions. For example, since last year, I think toward end of the last years, when we need to have the both agenda recovery, I mean tackling the COVID-19, in the same time we need to ensure the continuations of the environmental protections and management activities, as well as in the same time we need to recover the economic impact due to the pandemic, and we come to the more integrated program. We call it the Mangrove Rehabilitation Program. So the Mangrove Rehabilitation Program, in fact, have two sides of coins. The first one is the economic recovery, because people, colleagues who replanted the mangrove will receive a weekly payment. And in the same time, of course, it is the ecosystem rehabilitation program, because then we've been able to have a massive movement in mangrove replanting. So we continue that approach till today's till this year, even even more increase the targets. So that's one of the examples. And the other examples that I think based on the monitoring data, the emissions from the transportation was lower, yeah, and it gave an opportunity for the environment to recover themselves. But in the same time, it's also give us plenty of time and opportunity to rethink the all the protection and environmental program. So yes, we try to be positive. There's always an opportunity behind the disaster like COVID pandemic, and of course it's slowing down somehow. But based on our measurement and our monitoring, in terms of the NDC target achievement, we are still on track. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lakshmi. Now, I want to actually follow up with a question for Rasmus and Ken. You know, we talk a lot about the need to mobilize more private capital, particularly both from domestic and international investors. And I wanted to ask what Denmark and or the UK have been doing to facilitate the access of institutional investors from your country, or to attract them to invest in clean energy projects in Indonesia or other emerging economies.
Thank you, Cecilia. Shall I go first? I think if you look at the Danish institutional investors, they are in fact increasingly engaged in the Danish energy transition, where they have invested heavily in offshore wind. And they're also expected to play a key role in the realization of the future Danish energy islands. And then we have had quite a bit of success in developing blended finance instruments that would allow the pension funds and other institutional investors to co-invest in emerging and developing countries. An example is the Danish SDG Investment Fund, which is hosted by our DFI, the Danish Investment Fund for Developing Countries, where we are exactly blending public and private finance. And they invested billions of Danish kroners in developing countries with a significant success. We are currently contemplating a second phase of that, and that is just testament to certainly the interest of the investors in actually providing capital, especially if that can be done together with partners who know the local scene, etc. And we have been trying to globalize some of those experiences as well through the Climate Investment Coalition that was launched 2 years ago during the Climate Summit in New York, also to facilitate sort of mutual learning and best practices. And already now we see, especially from some of the Nordic pension funds, a strong interest in following in the Danish footsteps and embarking on similar instruments. So I think there is a lot of potential here, and maybe just also to emphasize, I think what others have said, and maybe also what you can see a little bit in the chat, namely that the money is out there, and I think increasingly we also have the instruments, and therefore it's still about sort of establishing also the institutional framework locally, and see what we can do to deal with some of the enabling frameworks, and then there's a significant potential to unlock investment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rasmus. I'm going to take one final question from the floor, and this is to Ken. We have a participant from the Ministry of Environment and Forestry asking how the UK could facilitate the negotiations on climate finance so that parties would consider putting their pledges since years ago.
Great, thank you very much. I mean, if I may, I might tackle some of the other questions as well, if I may, very
Sure,
briefly.
please, go ahead.
So just in terms of the challenges faced by COVID-19, this is very relevant globally, of course. We are seeing governments across the world currently grappling with the COVID-19 crisis. But I think it's important, just as on COVID-19, it's the same on climate change, that we need to follow the science and what the science is telling us. And the science is very clear that we need to move much faster towards a cleaner, greener energy system globally if we are able to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees. And we very much support the message from the UN Secretary General that governments, as they are emerging from the COVID-19 crisis, need to be using the opportunity of their recovery programs to be investing in renewables and in green tech. And that delivers up to 3 times more jobs than investment in the old economy, and it delivers higher growth rates as well. In terms of the mobilization of investment, I just wanted to point again very quickly to our fire dialogues. I very much agree with what Rasmus just said, that the money is out there. Investors want to invest in renewable sector, particularly in a country with so much potential as Indonesia, but they need some regulatory reform in order to deliver that potential. And we are working hand in hand with the government of Indonesia and through those fire dialogues, which we co-chair with the government to deliver the changes which are identified as necessary by the investor community and the government. In terms of globally, I think we are pushing very hard on all donors to be meeting the 100 billion commitment every year. This is something which I raise in every meeting with developed countries as part of my role, including, of course, with the Asian Development Bank. And I think we are heartened. I think that last at the G7 meeting just a few days ago, we saw major new commitments on climate finance from countries like Canada and Germany. We know that the Asian Development Bank is looking at what more it can do to facilitate the renewable energy revolution within Southeast Asia, which shows enormous potential. And of course, we are trying to build on that in the months ahead and to make sure that we make progress on all 3 pillars of the Paris Agreement. So of course, bringing down emissions, of course, helping countries to adapt, but also ensuring that the finance is there to support that transition. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ken. And I'd like to thank all of our fellow panelists for their remarks and for joining us in this session today. I'm afraid our time is running to an end. We are very pleased to have been able to work with our colleagues in the government of Indonesia, but also with our member and key partner countries in really evaluating the great potential that Indonesia's clean energy market provides, but that we do recognize there are a number of policy reforms that need to be put in place to really unlock the capital that is really sitting, waiting, ready to invest in the country's clean energy transition. And under the OECD CEFM program, we look forward to continuing our work with the government and to working closely hand in hand with you to implementing some of the recommendations that have come out of the review, as well as working with our country partners in supporting their efforts to strengthen and facilitate more investments in the clean energy space in Indonesia. With that, I'd like to end this panel session and turn it over to my colleague, Andreas Schul, who will provide some closing remarks for our session. Andreas?
Thanks so much, Cecilia. Pak Airlangga Hartarto, Coordinating Minister for Economic Affairs, Pak Wimbo Santoso, Chairman of OGK, Pak Tarin Tasrif, Minister of Energy, Mineral Resources, Deputy Minister Monty Chiriana, Ambassador Larsen of Denmark, Rodolfo, Cecilia, friends, colleagues. This was really a very insightful discussion, and I'm very glad to Rodolfo, Cecilia, and the team and our colleagues in Indonesia that you have embarked on this important work, which can make a meaningful contribution to climate change, which we should not forget, or which we should tackle as a priority, despite all the focus on COVID response. And there is an opportunity in the Building Back Better. And I believe that this strong cooperation between the OECD and Indonesia on environmental policy is significant to this broader climate change debate, given Indonesia's relevance to this issue on a world scale. Our Secretary General, and you heard him this morning, has indeed highlighted both sustainability concerns, fresh focus on OECD engagement in the Asia Pacific as the two priorities since he has taken office recently. So this event today and our joint work together in providing sustainable finance, clean energy finance, and tackling climate change is indeed a major milestone in this strategic cooperation. In this context, I want to put this event in the broader context of the growing and strong cooperation between Indonesia and the OECD. Indonesia has, as many of you know, a special relationship with us, being one of the 5 countries together with Brazil, China, India, and South Africa that became a key partner of this organization in 2007. And since then, Indonesia has very actively contributed to OECD's work. Let me just recall that Indonesia was the first key partner to sign a framework of cooperation in 2012. So almost 10 years ago, but this has helped us to drive the work together in Southeast Asia. We have opened an office in Jakarta, the launch of the Southeast Asia Regional Program in 2014, and then the launch of the office in 2015 are a testament to this deepening partnership. The cooperation in the G20 context is very important, and in this context, we have already started to support Minister Hartarto, your colleagues in the Indonesia Ministry of Economic Affairs for the upcoming chairmanship of the G20 in 2022. So this will be another milestone in our cooperation. We are currently now in the last year of our third joint work program, which was launched, and I was pleased to be there with the then Secretary General and Sri Mulyani in October 2018 at the margins of the IMF World Bank meetings in Bali, in presence later also of President Joko Widodo, who kind of was very keen that we advance this program of work. It has a part dedicated to sustainable development, which has become one of the strongest areas of cooperation over the years. The CIFIM project that we discussed today is a highlight in this respect. Other milestones have been the green growth policy reviews that Rodolfo launched with the Minister of Environment and Forestry, Siti Nurbaya Bakar, in 2019. We have a new initiative upcoming in close cooperation with Bapenas on better aligning infrastructure investment with the Paris Agreement and the SDGs. Final major work stream relates to the blue economy, which is equally important for Indonesia, aimed at supporting Indonesia to manage increasing pressures on the ocean. These work priorities will be carried forward to the next, what we call a 4th joint work program, which we expect to launch in fall this year under the theme Resilient, Inclusive and Sustainable Recovery. And our Secretary General will travel to Indonesia to launch this new program. Will also exploit synergies with the upcoming G20 presidency in both the Sherpa and the finance tracks. A notable example in this context might be sustainable finance, which has been identified as a priority for Indonesia on the finance track. And the Secretary General mentioned also the Triharta Karana agenda on blended and bringing public finance into the development debate. The CIFIM program is expected to provide important input into these discussions. In this context, let me say we welcome Indonesia's recent interest in getting even closer to the OECD, and particularly in the completion of its study on mapping the policy gap with the OECD. This provides the groundwork for foster increased alignment with OECD standards, best practices. Our enhanced engagement in this area of environmental policy may create new scope for Indonesia to progressively adhere to our many declarations and conventions in this area, as we currently also see in the case of other countries like key partners like Brazil, who wants to move closer to the OECD and has actually requested membership. Our sincere hope, and this is my conclusion for today's meeting, is that this cooperation, which is fantastic, and we have many friends among Indonesian policymakers in Indonesia's government, in the administration, that this cooperation can support a resilient, sustainable recovery from this unprecedented crisis. And be assured that the OECD stands side by side to you, to our Indonesian partners, counterparts, in solidarity and in support. And let me say, as a final word, you really can count on the OECD family. Just be part of it. Thank you very much indeed.
Hello. Thank you, Andreas, for your closing remarks. Now, I want to ask Pak Dida Gardeda on behalf of Pak Monty to also deliver the closing remark for this event today. Pak Dida, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Aang. Thank you, Cecilia, Rodolfo, and Andreas Hall. On behalf Mr. Monty Giriana, Deputy Minister of Coordinating Economic Affairs. Thank you to Pak Dadan, Ibu Laksmi, His Excellency Rasmus Christens from the Danish Ministry, and His Excellency Ken O'Flaherty from UK COP Regional Ambassador to Asia Pacific and South Asia, and all the participants of this event. Ladies and gentlemen, as we heard from the panel speakers and the keynote speech from the distinguished speakers earlier in the event, clean energy will be one of the significant sectors to support a better recovery after the pandemic. It will also contribute significantly to reduce carbon emission and tackle the climate change challenges. Thankfully, Indonesia is blessed with abundant resource of clean energy, but its utilization is facing some obstacles that require actions and collaboration to address it. The report that we have today identified those obstacles and offering recommendation to unlock the potential and maximize the opportunities. It will also become a reference to enhance the efforts to accelerate the finance and investment of clean energy. The Clean Energy Project has several success factors. First, the potential that can technically built by the project developers, the funding from the financial institution and investors, as well as a sound and attractive regulation and incentive from the policymakers. The support from the international organization is also essential to assist and improve the collaboration among the stakeholders through some technical assistance, capacity building, and sharing best practice. Hence, I convey appreciation that OECD is keen to continue and its support to clean energy finance and investment in Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, to conclude, I emphasize the pathway that we have started on the clean energy and carbon reduction through the national energy policy and national determined contribution, as well as the sustainable finance through the roadmap and taxonomy, need to carry out consistently with the best effort and a strong collaboration. Therefore, I look forward to continue our collaboration. Thank you. Stay safe and stay healthy. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Terima kasih Pak Dida atas penutupnya. Bapak Ibu sekalian, kita berikan.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Let's give an appreciation to all of us who has been present in this event today. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the series of the events today. Hopefully, our objective in this green energy finance and finance mobilization, which is in this case is to accelerate the green energy can be achieved. Amen. On behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to say thank you, stay safe and stay healthy. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Warm greetings.
Terima kasih Bapak Ibu.
Thanks, Tita. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Rodolfo. Thank you, Andres.
Thank
Terima
you.
kasih Pak Dadan, Bu
Thank you.
Ami.
Yeah, thank you.